Hold the air. I see the subject inside. Looks like he's got a gun in his hand and he's pointing at the clerk. Guys, I've got the south covered behind you. Watch the crossfire. Running southbound, Rob. He's coming right at you.
All units, Victor 3, Victor 5 are fighting with one. Hold the air.
Victor 3, slow down. Subject in custody. Firearm recovered.
Copy that. Command clear. Subject is in custody for the robbery. Firearms recovered.
Hey, welcome back to Hold the Air podcast. Sitting next to me is Rob Forbes. We got a good show for you guys today. You are who you learn from in law enforcement, and the two gentlemen that are in our studio today exemplify that 100 times over. I'm not wasting any time. Welcome, Frank. Welcome, Q.
Yeah, man. Thanks for joining us in the studio, fellas.
Yeah.
Hey, cheers, brother. Hey, man.
Cheers.
Hey.
So, to those that don't know who Frank and Q are, we're going to take the next hour or so to introduce you guys to two of my favorite people in my professional career and to the end of my life. I would just put it that way. You guys impacted the way that I looked at wanting to do police work in a certain kind of way. It never changed. And then outside of work, who you guys are, it's the same thing. You guys carry this level of honor and respect. And the young guys that are currently at LPD, they missed out not having a chance to work with you guys and to learn and to ask questions. You guys did this job the right way. We're so happy that you're able to coordinate a time to come down to the podcast studio. We're all busy post law enforcement career, but yeah, let's get into this.
Yeah, man. I'm super excited. I remember, like, there is not so much of this is about legacy, right? Everyone in here has their own legacy, and these guys you trace our bloodline directly back to them, right? Like, we were chasing these guys with their work ethic and the respect that they had in the neighborhood, and the give and the take that they had in any given situation was just 10 out of 10 every time. So what I want to start with is what we typically do is start from the beginning. What was the on-ramp for you guys to get where you got, Lansing police officers? What was the on-ramp for you guys? Where are you from? How'd you start?
Quincy Scroggins. I was born and raised in Saginaw, Michigan. At the early age, I believe, of 10, I witnessed, basically, it was a shooting homicide where it was in my neighborhood and the police was involved. And I saw everything, and it really bothered me because the police actually was the suspects. And I... as a kid, as a 10-year-old, I'm looking out of the window and I saw the whole thing go down. And that bothered me. And this was before, people can have therapy. And, basically my mom told me, hey, just go to school. You didn't see anything, And that was back when it was a real fear, a real issue where you never know what might happen, So from that day, I thought that, and I could have been the person, and I later found out what really happened, and I could have been that person on the police department at Saginaw PD that said, hey, wait a minute, this is not right. This is not the right thing to do. And that's why I decided to become a police officer at 10.
Wow.
And most people probably would have said, hey, I don't want to have anything to do with the police. But that was the start off of where I wanted to go and what I wanted to be. So I ended up going to a community college over in Saginaw, Delta College, got my associates there, and then I transferred to Western Michigan University. And, I got my bachelor's in criminal justice, and I also had a certification where we went to a police academy over there, so we were automatically certified. And I wanted to go back towards home, Saginaw, but I didn't want to go to Saginaw, so I thought Lansing would be a great spot because it was only an hour away. And then I started my career with the Lansing Police Department.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How about you, Frank?
My name is Frank Mobley.
Yes,
Born
it
and
is.
raised in Chicago, Chi-Town. I don't have the same story like Quincy. I'm sorry. Nope. Graduated from MSU, full ride, play ball. Right as I was graduating from MSU, my academic advisor was asking me what was I planning on doing, and I told her I didn't know. So she said that LPD was hiring. Once again, my degree is in criminal justice. I had a young child, so I came over to LPD. But going back to what Quincy was talking about, I mean, coming from Chicago, you see how things were done. In reference to the way the police in Chicago treated people and all that. I mean, of course, you want to change that. So I thought that I could help out in that, but nah, police wasn't my first choice. But as I was as I was graduating, it was a good job. LPD was hiring, so I said, let's go. A good way to provide for the family and stuff.
So you saw a shitty version of police work.
Oh yeah, come
Yeah.
on. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm from the south side of Chicago, so
Yeah.
things were not done the right way at times. So
Yeah. So you felt like you wanted to be a part of something different.
just like my mom said, if you want to change something, become something.
Yeah.
So
Right.
you know what? It was a opportunity to do something different and change something. So
Now, did either of you catch any type of flack from your family members, from your friends? Because they all grew up in the same communities you guys did, and you're making a choice to get into law enforcement, which was probably not high on a lot of lists of things that folks wanted to do in the black community, but you chose to do it. Was there any pushback?
I did have pushback where I was from.
Yeah.
But me going to college, it kind of like offset everything because they knew that I wanted to do something different than most people in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
So what happened is, towards when I actually became a police officer is when there was a little pushback. But that's why I decided not to go back to Saginaw because I didn't want to have that issue with, family members or people that I grew up with, So I wanted to make sure that I went somewhere else outside of the community. But I wanted to make sure that, there's a lot of things that Frank and we're going to talk about it later on, but there's a lot of things that we felt that we didn't get in our communities. And we wanted to do that for the Lansing area or the Lansing community. And I think that's what set us apart from most other officers is because we knew how to talk to people from day one. It wasn't anything that we were, trained to do or we learned in a book. We knew how to do it right from the get-go because that's what the communities that we came from.
Yeah. And that, Rob and I worked with this guy for a long, long time, worked with you guys your entire careers. I think and I've said it, I think before, once you find that intangible way of communicating with folks, it opens up so many doors. Like people call you when you don't expect them to call you. You get information that improves an investigation. You get friendly conversation. Maybe a family member just says, "Hey, Frank, such and such is doing great." You just have these meaningful conversations, and they trust you. They see you driving through the neighborhood, and there's this huge, huge trust. And a lot of that talent came from where you guys were born and how you guys saw things. And it wasn't always the police doing the right thing. It wasn't always we talk about racism right in law enforcement. It's a real thing. It's a real freaking thing. And you guys, from what I remember and to this second, I had so much respect for you. I didn't really actually know that about you, Q. I didn't know that at 10 years old you saw something traumatic. But to get into law enforcement and say, I'm going to be a part of something that makes that change means so much more to me than the folks that want to bitch about it and want nothing to do with it. They don't want to be a part of the process. They just want to be part of the bitching about it. And you guys chose to do that. And it doesn't shock me because you guys are my boys and I've known you for a long, long time. And I think that's incredibly admirable that you guys would get into a profession knowing that you're going uphill. And that's a pretty cool thing to me. So I mean, it goes without saying that for the time when you guys first got hired on, let me ask you this, because this is where I'm going with this, because I think it's very important. When you guys first got hired on, what was it like?
Quincy actually said something that was really, I mean, he mentioned something that was really, I mean, it was a true statement. Because we were already in college and removed from our neighborhoods, kind of, that made the transition a lot easier for us to go into law enforcement. You understand?
Yeah.
I mean, we were already gone. So it wasn't like we were, leaving out Friday and joining the academy on Monday. I'm coming from 103rd.
Yep.
You understand? So I was already gone. So that made that transition a lot easier. But it was difficult at times because there was no one in my family that was a law enforcement. So my mom, my dad, my sisters, my brothers, everybody embraced it. But were they fearful? Were they scared for me and scared for us? Yeah, I mean, because you hear so many negative things. And then you talk about being a minority also. Stuff that I didn't even think about, my family, including my wife, they were all on board. My wife was like, hey, go make that money.
Yeah.
Because once again, we had a little one. But if I did hear anything negative, I've always just pushed it to the side.
I'll tell you, I mean, I've seen local guys get hired at LPD and have a terrible time trying to police in the area they grew up in.
Yep.
We've all seen that.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because talented people, very talented
I was about to say that there's some very talented people that have came through that couldn't balance that.
Yeah, but the both of you chose to leave Saginaw, you chose to leave Chicago, but you brought with you all the intangibles that you learned growing up in your respective neighborhoods.
True.
So what was it like when you first hired on at LPD? What years did you guys hire on?
95.
Yeah, 95. We
95?
both came in the same year.
Okay, all right. And what was it like?
So let me throw this disclaimer out to everyone first, though. I mean, here it is. We both did 25 years. You never had no issue with us on or off, in or out the uniform.
Yep.
Never a complaint. We did our job. So whatever may come out of this and people get their feelings hurt, shame on you.
Sure.
Shame on you.
Yep.
Because I didn't drag nothing through the mud. I mean, I am very prideful in my work that I did at LPD. I'm very prideful of the people that I worked alongside.
Yep.
The majority. So I just want to throw that out there. I mean, that's my disclaimer. We did some really, really good things out there. So, but coming in 1995, it was tough.
Yeah.
It was tough. So first of all, we didn't know that the FTO process would be so grueling. I mean, we didn't know we could get flunked out. Am I right about that? I mean, that was.
Had no idea. So and Darren Lerner, we love you. We love you, Darren Lerner. But Darren Lerner was the recruiter back in the day, and we had no idea that there was an FTO program. They just basically said, hey, you're hired at Lansing Police Department. Welcome aboard, buddy. So we didn't know at the time, and we hired in with, this was back when we hired in with like maybe 3 or 4 other individuals. So we all had different days. They set up seniority on different days. So because we had so many people coming in at the same time. So when we started off, and there was another buddy of mine that got hired in with us as well. He was a lifetime friend of mine. He didn't make it through the FTO program. We didn't know that the FTO program, for the most part, 1 out of 3 folks didn't make it. We didn't know that. We just thought, hey, we hired in and we're done. So when we finally like started going on the road, we ran across certain individuals. I won't give any names, but certain individuals that was in the FTO program for like 6 or 7 months,
Yeah.
got recycled 3 or 4 times, and they were telling us, hey, keep your mouth shut, listen, and and you'll be okay. And Frank and I obviously met the first day, and we made sure that we kept that. We kept our mouths shut. Like we wasn't opinionated where, if we felt like something wasn't right, or, like, somebody's talking or whatever, we just listened and continued to go about our way. And I think that's the major difference between us when we first started early on in 1995 and when you had other officers after us, because they were more opinionated. And we used to tell them all the time, like, just, hey, shut up, listen to what is out there, listen to, get the experience, and then once you get your time in, you can talk junk, or
Yeah.
and go from there. And that's, I think that Frank and I bonded early on because we saw all these other individuals not making the FTO program, not necessarily because they wasn't smart enough. They wasn't like coming, they didn't have bachelor's degrees, but it was because maybe the FTO didn't necessarily like them for some particular reason, and they just took him out of the process. It was one guy in particular. He was from MSU. He ended up going to the FBI and making a lifelong career in the FBI. And he got booted out of the Lansing Police Department process. It shouldn't have never happened, you know?
Sure.
So again, like when I thought about when I was a 10-year-old and I felt like I could do something different, when I become a police officer, Frank and I felt the same way. One day we're going to be in those shoes as a FTO, and we're going to be understanding of each individual when they're coming in and what they can offer the police department. And back in the day, it wasn't like that. If you said one thing that the other folks didn't agree with, you're done.
So
I'm sorry, I just want
Yeah.
to throw this in there. It had nothing to do with your skill set at that time, because, well, a little bit it did, but you're talking about people that didn't have no knowledge of police work. I mean, like myself.
yeah.
It's not about the person was not educated, or, I mean, here it is, we're coming in with bachelor's degrees, so we're somewhat educated.
Yeah.
I mean, but the understanding of police work, I mean, the laws and the city ordinance, that was our big thing, city ordinances. I mean, the map reading, the report writing, I mean, those things that, I mean, then you drill it. I mean, then you're looking at it, and you're looking at all the stuff that you got to put together and make it work. It's not just, okay, you got this one thing over here. No, you got to put it all together, and you got to work it day in and day out. And you're handling really stressful calls. You're driving a special. I mean, stressful calls. It was just different, and you put that on top of. I'll be real with you. I mean. You put that on top of some folks who think it was not fair that the department was being made to hire minorities at that time.
Right.
And
Sponsorship.
and the sponsorship.
Yep.
And once again, I'm gonna go back to that. Quincy briefed on it. There were a number of people who came in before us. I mean, who were just really, really good. I mean, on point. But they didn't know how to play that game a little bit. I mean, really, and they were dropped in the first week, dropped in the second week.
Yep.
I mean, we lost out on a lot of good candidates. I mean, a lot of good recruits because of that. So
there was a I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but a cultural shift, right? Like a mindset where what used to be the norm had to kind of adjust a little bit.
Yeah.
And maybe folks that had to make that adjustment weren't comfortable making that adjustment. So when we speak of FTO, we mean at field training officer or field training program, right? So we all had to go through a field training program. We all were evaluated on all kinds of categories of work. So like you said, driving, orientation, your ability to understand the law and the things that you were supposed to do on a call. On top of all of that, you might be with an FTO that's holding a little animosity to you because he feels or she felt like you got sponsored for a certain reason and then necessarily politically or whatever, fundamentally or whatever, agree with that. So when you guys speak of these folks that didn't quite make it to the finish line, you know, that's a mistake, right? That's a flawed thing. It's uncomfortable to say it, right? Because you guys, everybody loves you guys. Like when you guys left, the department lost a lot. But I don't know that everyone knew that these things were a reality, right? And it's unfortunate that it is, but that's the real, it's real shit. Like we're not gonna sit. I can't sit in a room with you two and with Rob and not say, yeah, at that time there was a massive mandate to hire black officers for the Lansing Police Department because we were not represented in the numbers.
You're not giving the whole thing though. It wasn't just black police officers. You're talking about minorities in general. So you're talking about minorities in reference to
Females?
Asian females.
Yep.
I mean, to be honest with you, there were. Correct me if I'm wrong. There were more females that were being hired back in the days than there were black male. I mean, black officers. I mean, am I right or wrong? I mean, or it was close.
You're right. And again, we didn't realize this as 23-year-olds. We just was happy that we came in at a job and we had a career, but we didn't understand because this was right after Rodney King, you know. So that's when everything kicked in, and I believe Clinton sponsored, or he put a lot of money into local law enforcement agencies, and they hired 100,000 officers. So that's how we all got jobs. You know, at that time. But the thing is, and we've talked about this before in the past, the thing is when we came in, we were just young and naive. We didn't understand why people were upset with us or irritated with us for being there. All right? We just thought, well, we were just some young guys. But what it was is the older guys, you know what I'm saying, older guys, older, or white guys, you know what I'm saying, were upset because they felt like we came in under affirmative action and we were taking jobs away from, other people that could come in. And again, we didn't understand that at the time, but looking back at it now, we realize it wasn't a situation where, these black officers were coming in and taking white officers' jobs, because number one, 90% of the black officers, whether they were black females or black males, we all had bachelor's degrees. We all had degrees. The thing is when white officers came in, they had maybe 2-year degrees, or they had the equivalent of 90 semester credit hours as in the police academy. But even with that, we still didn't outnumber the amount of folks that were coming into LPD, period. So that's what we didn't understand coming in. Like, how are we a threat? And then if you look at it now, after all of this, 20-something years, we did our 25 years at LPD. After 25 years, people didn't understand that minorities were considered, white females were considered minorities. So now the population, or the population of LPD, and again, I can't quote it, but I can almost guarantee you that there's at least 50% white females at LPD right now. And it was a direct result of all the hiring that happened in the 90s and 2000s. But that wasn't an issue ultimately for everybody else. They just looked at us.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
And I just want to touch on that. I mean, we had to come in with a squeaky clean background. I mean, did you have a ticket back in the days? Did you have any run-ins with the law? I mean, that was the thing that was, as you get older, you look back on that, and and you talk to other officers as you're on, you know, years later, and you're like, yeah, I had this, I had a domestic, I had like 4 or 5 tickets, but with us, our record had to be like squeaky clean during that hiring process. You know, I mean, it was just different, but I didn't have nothing, so I mean, I wasn't worried about it, but it was still stressful though. So
Yeah.
to go through that that magnifying glass to get a job, and let's say if this is the thing that's crazy. Let's say if there was no affirmative action, I'm still coming out of MSU with a damn
Mm-hmm.
criminal justice degree. So why wouldn't I get hired?
Right.
I mean, and my background is squeaky clean. So what the hell are you talking about?
Right.
But I was reminded about that daily during my hire and when I first got on.
My parents came here as migrant workers. The racism button you got to push pretty hard for me to feel like it's a detriment to my life, right? I just want to go someplace, figure out how to do what I'm asked to do, and try to perform at a high level, just like you two. I think that's exactly what you guys just described.
As you're young though, you're like, oh, that doesn't apply to me, you know, and stuff like that. You know, what I mean, you know, I mean, I know it's not, but as you go through it, it hit us hard. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy that I had another brother
Mm-hmm.
from the similar situation or similar background or neighborhood, so we can bounce it off. I mean, yeah, Quincy and I used to talk all the time, like, can you believe they did this shit or this shit is going on? I mean, it was the best thing to have, like a soundboard. So it was really good. I mean, it was really, really nice. I mean, so I just want to throw that out there. I mean, to everybody that have been here before us. I mean, even Tracy and Norm. I mean, Norm Armstrong. I mean, Guy Pace. I mean, you talking about people that were in there a couple of years before we were. I mean, it mattered, but we didn't. I don't think we really understood the magnitude of what we were going through. But it was really helpful to bounce things off of each other, though.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it
and
really made a difference.
and you never know who you're gonna build a career relationship with, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I built a career relationship with Rob.
yeah,
Rob and I have never talked about race.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I never looked at Rob and had any concern about that, right? And he never looked at me and had any concern that I looked at him a certain kind of way.
Yeah.
You know, once you got in and got put, someone has to fill that role. Someone has to go through the bullshit to improve the years that are ahead of us. And you guys were part of that. You're part of the improvement of race in the workspace. And right now, I don't even think it's you know what I'm saying? Right now, I would say that it's not something that is so overwhelming or so obvious. I believe that race relations in this country have improved exponentially.
Okay.
I think it's easy to talk about. I think it's easy to trigger people and say this and that and that. Here's a perfect example, and I might get a lot of shit for saying this, but if you're on YouTube and you're watching a video and you see a white officer engaged in a conflict, and the person he's engaged with happens to be black or brown, there are some people that are instantly gonna say right off the bat it's because that officer's racist. They're not going to take any of the fact pattern
That's true.
They're just going to say, oh, that white guy is talking to that black or brown person the wrong kind of way. They're not going to have any of what was before that officer got there, the information, the things that we're responsible for. It's just so easy, I think, for some to try to think or to convince that law enforcement people, especially white officers, are first presumed to be racist until proven otherwise. That goes against the moniker of our profession. You're innocent until proven guilty, but white officers are almost always guilty before proven innocent. And I work with too many. I work with too many to feel and know that ain't the thing. But what you guys experienced was real ass shit. And it happened, and it was wrong, and everyone that treated you guys that way was wrong for treating you guys that way. But 10 years, you push 10 years past that, and what are you guys doing? You're a negotiator. You're a detective. It didn't phase you. It didn't stop Quincy Scroggins from being one of the best homicide detectives LPD's ever had. It didn't stop Frank Mobley from being what Frank Mobley was, canine officer, FTO, negotiator. It's just the idea that I'm going to perform because I enjoy and love my career.
And I think
Go ahead.
along with that, I think that let's come back to your original motivation. Your original motivation was
Right.
improvement, right? Like I want to be part of something that is the catalyst to go the right direction, right? On the heels of
Right.
what you're talking about is and it comes back in sync with what you spoke about when you wrote the article a couple years ago to the City Pulse, right? The best in that whole article, that whole interview, that whole statement, the part that I love the most is this: when you said, "If there's improvement to make, let's make it."
Yeah.
If there's improvement to make, you would be an idiot to say there's a better way to do it, but I'm not doing it. Who would ever do that? No.
Right.
If we can make this better, let's make it better.
And
Right?
can I add to the fact that you said that we make it better? My thing is, we didn't know what better was.
True.
We just wanted to make
There you
it.
go.
We just wanted to do it differently. You know what I'm saying? Whether it was good or bad, we wanted to do it the way we thought that it would work. You know what I'm saying?
And also, I just wanted to make sure that we got this out there. I mean, because you know what? I mean, you got to remind people over and over this disclaimer again. I mean, I just want to remind people again. You know, it's we had, and I'm speaking for the both of us. Quincy had a great career at LPD. We worked with some of the most awesome people out there. So I don't want this to overshadow. I don't want anybody to jump on the bandwagon and be like, well, you know, they're talking about me. I was about to say something. I was about to say the MF word, but I'm not going to say that. You know what? If you think like that after all this time and you've worked with me, beside me, with me, I mean, if you feel that way, shame on you.
Yep.
So I would have worked here, we would have worked here for half of what we got paid back in the days, probably like the first 10 years.
Yeah.
Because we had so much fun and we made such a big difference. I mean, we enjoyed our career whole 25, but we enjoyed what we did. I mean, we enjoyed all the fun things about LPD. I mean, all the crazy things about LPD. We made some great friendships in LPD. We made some great friendships on the street. I mean, we did some cool, awesome things. So once again, if we have so much pride, and that's what the old school taught us compared to the new school. You know, I don't have LPD tatted on my butt cheeks, but I mean, I have a sense of pride in reference to getting hired at LPD back in the days.
Yep.
You know, and I still do. And I Quincy, I think I speak for you too. It was a sense of pride, right?
It was.
Okay.
Hey, folks, thanks for checking out this episode of Hold the Air podcast. Today's episode is brought to you in part by the Headroom Salon, located in beautiful Old Town, Lansing, Michigan, 1122 North Washington. If you're looking for an experienced stylist, friendly atmosphere, and a commitment to excellence, the Headroom Salon is the place for you. So the history lesson, we're done, right?
Mm-hmm.
You guys work in Washington, you work in Barnes. We're here in the radio traffic. Got one run, fight with one. Give us a typical good day for you two work in the Washington Barnes area of the city of Lansing.
Two people to help me out get there though. One was Guy Pace.
Okay.
And the reason why I want to throw Guy Pace's name out there because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Guy Pace.
Okay.
Guy Pace really slowed me down, said, hey, he broke them bad habits and all that stuff. And he forced me to start checking people.
Yeah.
He forced me to write the good reports.
Yep.
You know, he forced me to be mindful of all the stuff that I was doing and say, okay, you know what, if you want to be the best, this is what you have to do. And that's what Q and I used to always talk about. Like, okay, we're not going to be average because average is less than where we're from.
Yeah.
So we're going to be the best at what we do all the time. So I just want to throw that out there. And God Taste helps me
What's
get
checking
there.
people mean? Explain that, man. Right? We got a lot of
It's
listen.
when you have a loitering area of such.
Yeah.
And it could be drug, prostitution, or whatever. I mean, you are given, you are, per the city ordinance back in the days, you can stop and ask someone like, hey, what are you doing in the area? You know, or hey, there's a drug loitering in effect, and you walked around the area for the last hour, and I'm here to talk to you.
So let me explain that, because that was challenged, right? Post 2020, drug loitering letters was challenged, right? Because there was a massive attempt to recreate law enforcement, right? And there was some things that needed to be improved, like Rob said, right? If there's room for improvement, let's do it. But then some people that have no business talking about law enforcement because they're not in law enforcement wanted to change the way street cops did their job, right?
Correct.
So post 2020, law enforcement agencies across the country, they were getting their special assignments removed, where we can't go out, we can't talk to people, we can't check people. It's intrusive. It's this, it's that. You turn on a YouTube. This is how you beat the cops on a traffic stop. Okay, right? Whatever. We're gonna adjust. We're gonna figure it out, because if you're in the city doing dirt, you two were gonna get them, especially in Washington and Barnes. So a drug loitering letter was something that was the city would allow officers to deem, right? So Rob's a dope man. He sells me a bag of weed. I make the purchase. You pop me. A drug law enforcement number was pulled for the complaint. 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, they deemed that intersection a drug loitering area, right?
A block in all directions.
Right. A one block in every direction.
That's right.
What that gave the proactive cop that you guys were was the opportunity. Hey, I've seen dude at the corner like for 15 minutes or 20 minutes. The opportunity to go out. What are you doing here? Well, he's hustling dope, right? And we're gonna stop you. We're gonna detain you lawfully. We're gonna give you instructions, and if you choose not to follow the instructions, you got options. You can run. You're gonna get caught. You can lie. You're gonna go to jail, or you can tell us the truth. Who knows what happens after that, right? So in that area, Washington and Barnes, I swear to you, I didn't know as a young guy like how to navigate my way through the proactive police street contact. You guys were the king of that, because you're always on the radio stopping drug loitering people, making proactive stops. I just wanted to define that, because when police work was open, well, police work was always open, but when the perception of police work was this thing that's too intrusive, we have, as a street cop, you have to go out there and you have to shake the bushes.
Let me go back to the history of how we actually got drafted as community policing officers in our respective districts. So I was Fabulous Acres, and I had 2 years, 1 day, and my lieutenant pulled me in the office and said, "Hey, nobody wants this job. You got it." And they said that there's Moores River community policing officer that's vacant as well. So I tell you what, it's a bad neighborhood. You can bring anybody you want. If you got a friend or anybody, you can bring anybody you want in, and y'all can handle it together. And Frank and I were pretty cool at that point after 2 years, and I pretty much talked him into doing it. So the thing is, and people don't realize, like, this is our borders. North border is 496, west border is King, east border is Cedar, south is Mount Hope. Very small neighborhood, but the Washington corridor, there was the most prostitution in that area in any other parts of the city. This was back when GM had all the plants right there at King before they tore everything down. So what I was told is that the GM workers, unfortunately, they would come in on day shift, afternoons, and nights, and the prostitutes would cater to the GM workers. So they'll be in the parks doing their thing. They'll at 6 in the morning, be right before, like if their shift was at 6 in the morning, at 5:30 they'll be doing their thing. And in the lunchtime they'll be doing their thing. So I figured, and I told Frank, I was like, well, if we know that they're doing all these activities during the right before work, lunchtime, and right after work, let's work those hours. So what we did was we figured out that the prostitutes would go in the areas, they'll collect the money from the Johns, they'll go back in our neighborhoods that we were community policing officers in, and there was drug dealers set up in the houses in that particular neighborhood, and then it was just a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
So Frank and I said, okay, let's look at the city ordinances that can assist us in reference to what we do. Never knew this in the FTO program, but I figured out, well, wait a minute. Jaywalking, you can't cross a street, unless it's a 90-degree angle. You can't walk in the street. That's another civil
Sidewalks
infraction.
are provided.
If sidewalks provided. So what we started to do was, if we have, a lady of the evening, she jaywalked. She walked on the side on the street when the sidewalks were provided. We just started writing tickets because we knew that they wouldn't take care of their business, and go downtown and pay the tickets. Guess what? They end up having warrants for their arrest. So what we did was we just threw a monkey wrench in that whole cycle. So once the prostitutes or the ladies of the evening had warrants, we would say, hey, who are you doing whatever, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, well, it's such and such. And then they would provide the names, they would provide the locations, and they would tell us who the drug dealers were that were supplying the houses. And then we took a further step and we got with code compliance, city code compliance. We determined what rental houses the drug dealers had, and then we went in and we shut down the drug houses. That's how we interrupted that whole process, even before the drug loading areas. That's what made us successful.
Yeah. So you approached it systematically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So just to put it out there, we love GM.
Yeah.
But people do what people do, right? So what might seem to be something that some would consider, and this is a lower level crime, leads to the drug house, leads to the shooting, leads to the robbery, right?
Yes.
So ultimately, if we ignore these, what some folks would suggest, minimal violations of law, it leads to violent crime. Always. Because if you got dope, you got guns. If you got guns, you got death, right? So if someone hears you explain that, they're talking about this and that, you have to start somewhere.
You have to.
You have to start
You
somewhere.
have to start somewhere. That is it.
Yeah.
You have to start somewhere. And if you're in your own neighborhood, and this is ground zero for the area that you work, and you're going to make it better, well, let's attack in the front lines.
Yeah.
Right? That's exactly what you're describing. Like, if we listen, how many years of experience are in the studio today? Over 100.
Very easily.
Yep.
Over 100, right? So we know, without a doubt, if you took drugs out of the equation, how much crime would go down in our neighborhood, right? So you guys starting at that, right? Starting knowing, I mean, let's face it, why is a prostitute, why are they out there? It isn't because they want to be, it's because they're addicted. 99,000 times in a row, they're addicted to what? Not anything other than drugs. So if they are intimately connected to the dope man and doing whatever they can do to get their next $20, $50 to go back to the dope man. So you guys knowing that in your neighborhood and being the own chief of police of your own neighborhood and infiltrating that, that's what it's about. It's not just going after the hooker because they're low-hanging fruit. Right. It's about who they're connected to.
Right.
Oh, then it's about, right, and Frank, I know you know this because you did it probably better than most. Those contacts, right, those street contacts, you're developing a certain way with your words. Mm-hmm. Now you're talking about getting street level information. Now you're talking about, okay, I can get ahead of something now. we don't have to be reactive to this anymore because I've got enough information right here where we can take a proactive move on something.
Everyone in this room is dynamite at that.
Yeah.
Right? Starting at the bottom, and who do you know, and getting information from what I didn't know prior to this contact. What value can I get out of this contact and move from there? Go from A to B to C to D.
Yep.
So two things I want to touch on, and that is what Quincy and I, it's like, this should have been a Frank episode. Then you could have had a Quincy episode next time. But we're gonna keep on going with this. Just like Quincy and I are talking to you guys in this room today, that's how we talk to people on the street. There was no difference. I mean, it wasn't.
That's what's up.
Hello, my name is Officer Frank Mobley.
Yeah.
Please stand over here. No, we did it. We did it one way. Just like I talk to my kids, I talk to my supervisors. We did it one way, period. So that's number one. Number two, it's three things actually. I love the fact that both of us would stop people whenever we saw something.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't wait to like, oh my goodness, let me wait to 30 other cars over here. Once you call it out now.
Yeah.
Okay, you call it out, but get people rolling. But I'm not gonna let you get around the corner or around a block or whatever on me. I mean, that was huge with us.
Yeah.
I mean, once you call it out, okay, damn, this mug got something going. Let me go and start heading that way. You know what I mean? That was very important. And number three, we did some unconventional things. I mean, that put us where we had fun. I mean, we walked the neighborhoods. We rode bikes in the neighborhood. We were in DB cars in the neighborhood.
Which means unmarked car, no one knew.
No one knew a thing. But once again, we were on bikes. Come on now. I mean, who does that? I mean, everybody was like, nah, we gonna be in our cars. No, we were on bikes at nighttime. We were walking in neighborhoods, in the alleys at nighttime. We did something very different than what everyone else was doing, but our method was just effective. It was on point, and I think that our neighborhood needed that at that time because, like we always said, is that we're doing something that, how do we say it? Just like if we lived in that neighborhood.
Right. That's right.
And that's how we felt about it. Yeah, back in Chicago, my family attended an amazing church that was down the street. And the neat thing about that church was it was a mixed church. It was predominantly white, but there were some minorities there. But what was really cool is that they took us to certain areas. They did things with us. I mean, youth group camps. I mean, taking us Canada and all this for conventions and all that stuff. So it just helped me see another side of life outside of, of course, my family, we all went on vacations and stuff like that. But it was nice to see another side of life outside of Chicago. So that helped Q and I kind of base what we wanted to do for our neighborhood. I mean, no, we were not a church, but
yeah, you wanted to do the same thing because it was impactful, right?
Yeah.
Like leaving where you grew up in the city 100%. You grew up in. I don't think that happens enough. So you try to do that?
Yeah. So when I had that conversation with Frank, I didn't have that in my community where I didn't go outside of the city of Saginaw. So I always wanted to, again, if we can dictate, as a community policing officer, and they gave us total freedom, whatever we wanted to do, I wanted to make sure that those kids had an opportunity to go outside of Lansing to see what was out there. You know what I'm saying? See what was out in the world, because I felt like that was success for me. Eventually, I was able to do that. So as a community policing officer, Frank and I, what we did was we got with all the kids in our particular neighborhoods, and it was about anywhere from 30 to 60 kids, and they never been outside of their particular neighborhoods, and we had the resources. So I made sure that I got with the city council. They donated, a certain amount of money
Yep.
towards the cause. But then I wanted to make sure that the kids would benefit and understand that, hey, this is not a free, trip anywhere. So we organized car washes.
Yep.
We organized taco sales back in the day. And we told the kids basically, if you didn't get in trouble in school, throughout your school year, in the summertime, you volunteer, you do these car washes with us, and we'll take you to places that y'all never been before.
Wow.
And they were all excited about that. You know what I'm saying? So the one thing that we thought of is Cedar Point, because I was a big kid myself. I went to Cedar Point every year, as an adult. They never been to Cedar Point. So we got with Dean Transportation, and shout out to Dean Transportation because they gave us a huge discount on a bus at that point. And then we got with city council and got funds. And then we went to the local businesses within our neighborhood and asked for donations, and they gave us money for the cause. And we were able to take, at that time, I think it was like 30 to 40 kids to Cedar Point, and Frank and I were the leads on it. And we actually got with MSU, and we had interns to help us out as well. And we were able to get those kids down to Cedar Point, something that they would have never had maybe the opportunity to do by themselves.
Yeah.
And one of those kids within our group, at that time, her name was Renee. Won't give her last name, but she was probably about 15, 16 at that point. And again, she just realized that, hey, these officers are coming into my community and they're helping us. They're not arresting our daddies. They're not like, doing bad things within our community. They're actually helping. And those kids were lifetime, people within our lives. And again, at this time, it had to have been in the maybe 2000s or something where we actually took them. We did, how many trips? We did, about 2 or 3 trips to
Cedar Point.
Cedar Point. We went to
Great America.
Crystal Mountain, and we went skiing. We went to Chicago area.
Great America.
Great America Amusement Park. So we did all these things that most kids within inner communities would have never done. I definitely, me being in Saginaw, I would have never been able to do that. That's why it wasn't a book. It wasn't a book that taught us. It wasn't previous CPOs that taught us to do this. We just wanted to do it from our hearts.
Yeah.
Because we felt like that was the right thing to do. And a lot of people, including officers throughout our careers, would tease us like, they're Frank and Quincy. There they go again. Like, they're taking kids to Cedar Point and they're not working in the neighborhood. But we didn't like think that we wasn't doing anything that was bad. We figured, hey, we're going to keep doing this. So in reference to your question is, Renee was 15, 16 years at that point, and we did all these activities with her. She went to Cedar Point a couple times. She went to Chicago a couple times. And, in 2017, my daughter was born, and she was in the NICU at Sparrow for 3.5 months.
Oof.
And she had some issues, and we're around her little area where they were treating her, and this young lady came up to my side, and it was Renee. It was Renee. She at that time she was a nurse. She was an ER nurse, and she took care of my baby, for the 3.5 months.
Come on.
And when people tell you, like, there's situations like as a CPO, like, you're not gonna really do anything, or those kids are not gonna amount to anything. That was a great example of how the cycles had changed, and she took care of my baby. You know what I'm saying? She put an angel on my baby's NICU thing, man. It was amazing. And that's what I think community policing is all about. That was years later. That was 20 years later, But she always remembered Frank and I for what we did. We did Christmas parties, Christmas events. We went down to Target every year. We were CPOs for about 2 or 3 years. every year we went down to Target on East Edgewood, and we solicited toys to for our particular community. You know what I'm saying? So community policing works. I think that unfortunately, the way we did it because that's what we thought we needed to do in reference to our backgrounds, but we never thought about you know, like like we would hear about officers driving down the street and their community police officers, they wouldn't even roll their window down. They wouldn't get outside. We stopped our cars. We got outside and we interacted with our community. That's what it was all about. We didn't need a textbook to tell us that.
Right.
You know?
That's
And also, real quick, even though we did all that, we still took care of our neighborhood calls. You can't find one person that says that we never left any call that was on our board when we were there. I mean that we didn't deal with. So I just want to throw that out there too. I mean, yep, we did all that, but we still took care of our neighborhood, our issues. I mean, we took care of that business. Period. So
period. And for that to come around, like you're literally taking care of Renee. Renee is someone's child. So you take your precious daughter to the NICU in a very delicate moment in her the beginning of her life, and there she is. She's got your back.
Yes.
You had Renee's back. Actually, you had Renee's parents back. They probably didn't even know. And then you get to the NICU, and here she is. Obviously, her life was redirected, right? Because all of our lives are redirected. Anybody that happens to be successful or find a good path in life, there's a lot of redirection that happens before that, right? Because we make poor decisions, we make mistakes. We got to figure this thing out. You guys literally redirected her life, and then it came back, and it showed itself. That's flat out freaking amazing. You can't walk through your neighborhood or drive through your neighborhood with the blinders on and think that you're going to create any type of meaningful relationships with people.
true.
It just doesn't happen. And then way, 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 way before that, let's remember you guys decided to do this job because you wanted to be part of something that would change the bullshit that happened when you guys were young and the things that you saw.
Yep.
I love that story, dude.
And the thing is Renee is just one example of the many that Frank and I have experienced in our lifetime. We've been through 3 generations, man. Think about that. 3 generations within our small community where we can go there right now and drive down that street and then folks would know us. And whether it was good or whether it was bad with certain individuals, we had the respect of everyone. And it wasn't a situation where just because we had a badge and a gun, we demanded the respect. We earned the respect throughout those years.
Yep.
And those people in my particular neighborhood, in his particular neighborhood, they would go to bat for us every time. Am I right?
Yeah, but that was a neat thing about the job, and that's a great point you make. Regardless of what happened, regardless of what call, regardless of what contact we had with people, I mean, we always treated them with respect, and I mean, we always treat them with respect. So here we are, years later, we'll see them, and I mean, if it was good, bad, or indifferent in their eyes, they still say thank you for what you did, because the next day or after that call, I'll still give you whatever you need. Whatever you might need to help you out going, or your mom might need. We never held that against them. I mean, it was a new page.
Yep.
Right. It was instantly. It's like, okay, what can we do to help you, help your wife out, your kid out? We never held on to that. Like, we're gonna punish you guys from this point on. And people love that. They love that.
So let me ask you this, right? In a time currently where we're dissected and we're evaluated, and people can look at a video of a law enforcement interaction, and you have opinions of, these people were heavy-handed. Law enforcement, what I'm getting at is law enforcement requires physicality, right? You cannot be a street cop and not get your knuckles bloodied up, your shirt dirtied, You will not get through a career if you're a legit street cop and not put your hands on somebody. And a lot of times when you say that, folks yeah, you're just a brutal this and you no. We have to gain control of people sometimes. So do you guys have any like recollections of the first time? Because I know my first story when I punched a man in his face in uniform and didn't feel like I was outside of my scope of force because it elevated so quickly and so fast because the streets are dangerous. Like people die in the streets, right? Every day in this country. And we sit there and currently we want to be critical of law enforcement people because they're excessive this, excessive that. Force has to be used, right? And I know that when I started to be a street cop, I was chasing folks over fences. I was wrestling. I was fighting. I was punching. I know for a fact that you two did the same. But the next morning, if you saw that dude at the Sunoco at Moores River and Washington, what's up, Frank?
Yep.
What's up, Q? They didn't take it personal because they knew that what they did in that moment required us to respond with the same level of aggression that they were using towards us, right?
True.
So explain to me what being a street cop was and how comfortable you were applying that level of authority, and every time it was required. You had to do it. You could not be a street cop without putting your hands on somebody.
While you're thinking about that, let me interject, Frank, because I know that this is important. And you touched on it a second ago about respect. And I think that it is a huge component of this that the respect came for not only you guys, but us too, in following your way in large part, right? As far as working in neighborhood. But working in neighborhood, the respect factor was, I'm going to do everything in my power. I'm going to give this neighborhood 100% of my ability to make it better. Mm-hmm. And if you're in the way of that, then you are the problem. Because there are so many good people in this neighborhood that don't deserve your bullshit. Fair?
True.
So, in other words, these are the people that I'm working for because they're good folks. You're in the way, but now that we've identified, good and evil, so to speak, we're going to do this thing in a way that I don't hate you, but yet I'm going to make sure that you know that I am the one that is going to hold the line and protect these people over here.
Mm-hmm. What our motto back in the days was, this is just business. It's
100%.
not personal. It's not personal. It's just business. So with that being said, I mean, you talk about the neighbor next door. We talking about people that lived in the same building. We talking about females that were dating these dope dealers who they had like overpowered, and now the dope dealers were using their house with 3 or 4 kids. So that was the way we operated, and once again, we tell them all the time, it's just business. You know what? I mean, hey, you got to move. This is what we tell people. Like,
Listen,
hey,
I love you for
you know
that.
what? I mean,
I love you for that.
We would come in and we would knock on their door, like knock, 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 knock. Hey, we know you selling dope, or we know you doing A, B, and C. I'll give you a couple of days to move out, and we'll be good with that. Just move to the north side.
Yeah.
I would tell them, north of 496. Yeah, I'm just being honest. Hey, we'd be good. Now, when we come back off of leave days or wherever, they still there, game on.
Game on.
Game on, because
it wasn't disrespectful to the point that I'm making. It's not F you to just to make it that. It's you're in the way of somebody that's really decent over here.
Oh, yeah.
And it's my job to move you out of the equation.
Move you out or take you in.
That's right.
I mean, because I know that you're doing bad things in this area. So believe me, we're gonna find a way. Go ahead.
And what we try to do is we always were able to identify the problem in the neighborhood based on the citizens that told us. Because
100%.
remember, most citizens won't tell average cops that there's a dope house next to them because they're afraid of what may happen. But they trusted us. So then we were able to identify what areas were bad, what neighborhoods or what houses were bad. And then what we did was, because you always gotta have backup. You just can't, just go to a house and be like, hey, just tell them. So we would go to them, like Frank said, and say, hey, listen, honestly, we got people that told us that this is a dope house. Hey, we the community policing officers in the neighborhood. There's a new sheriff in town. Listen, y'all need to move, or we'll go something else. We'll go another route.
Yeah.
They never knew what the other route was, but the other route was this. What we would do is we would enlist the code compliance officers with the city of Lansing. We would also enlist SOD, and we would have SOD maybe if it was a drug house, we would have them do what they call cold buys and have them go straight up in the house to do cold buys. We would use all of our resources that we had. There was things that we called investigative stops. Okay, so if you have you're not necessarily targeting, but my thing is, if you got a guy going to a dope house that you confirm the dope house and on the 300 block of Isabel, that is a reason that you can stop that car for an investigative stop. And then you talk to that person, and then that person tells you, because he's freaking out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, man. Sorry, dude. I just bought some crack from such and such. Well, where was the house? It was at this particular address. That would give us the information that we needed in order to give that information to SOD, in order to do a search warrant, in order to do a raid. That's how we operated in our neighborhood with particular situations like that. Or remember that also there was a lot of prostitutes in our neighborhood. So those prostitutes would be fiends. We would refer those prostitutes to SOD. They would go into the houses instead of the undercover officers going in. Because sometimes when undercover officers, let's face it, do cold buys,
Dangerous.
and yeah, it's dangerous because they know. But if the prostitutes go in there, they know that they're legitimate, and those can give you the buys to hit those houses. So Frank and I, we always had a game plan. It was nothing like where we went in there and just cold cock. We always had a game plan, and that was our success. That's why we were so successful in our neighborhoods.
Right on.
Yeah, I can't put enough value on, like, we had Kira Wood on here a couple episodes ago, and she was very correct in how she described what made a community successful, and a huge thing was, can the officers talk to the people? Do the people want to talk to the officers? And then, are you building relationships with people that you're stopping, whether it's a person that's in violation of law, maybe a prostitute, a drug user. I was a dope cop for many, many years at LPD. I absolutely, and you guys, because you two were too, I never got more gratification out of turning what the streets would consider a crackhead into a champion.
Oof.
Here you got this person with this massive addiction, and their lives are horrible, right? Their children, anything that's in their life is just crap. It's just terrible, beyond what most of us could handle. And you sit that person down and you have an honest conversation. And I would always tell them, you're a source of information to me, right? Because the streets, they want to label it, you're a snitch, right? Because that benefits the street. But the crack user is always the person that never benefits. But if I turn you into a source, now you're beneficial.
Oh, yeah.
Now I can make you a superstar. Now I can make you feel like, beyond your addiction, beyond how the world looks at you, beyond how your family has given up on you, you have chosen to make a relationship with someone in law enforcement because deep, deep down the shit you're doing is not good for you and it's not good for this neighborhood. and you work with them, you build a relationship with them, and then you hit houses and then you develop cases. I always felt like the people that I built those relationships with were some of the best people I ever met in law enforcement. And the way you guys did it is what taught me how to approach it and what gave me the idea that I want to have success in this area, because what Q and what Frank are doing, I can see the effect. I would come in and make a call in your area because whatever, things were busy. Where's Frank?
Yep.
Where's Officer Q?
Yep.
When your name hits the streets, you ain't no average police officer. And for everybody watching this podcast, if your name never hits the street and you retire as an average police officer, you didn't leave it all on the court, and I'm sorry that you did that, because you never, ever, ever experienced what these two did. And I can say this for Rob, what Rob's experienced, and I know it for me. When you build relationships with shitheads and turn them into champions, when you build relationships with victims and turn their life around, something special happens. There's a magic thing that happens. And you can leave this career and you can look back and know that you had the patience to deal with the most troubled people in our community and turn them into something special. You guys did that to the tune of mad props from me anyway.
Cousin, I appreciate that, and I mean, it wasn't easy, and I'm going back to the relationships we built in the area real quick. Quincy and I had fun with that though. I mean, you had wives calling, you had neighbors calling. We had fun with that. I'll give a story.
Preach.
Of a guy that was wanted for many B&Es. He had a bunch of felony warrants. He lived on, I can't even say the address he lived on. He lived on between MLK and Washington. That good?
Yeah.
That's good.
This guy was notorious for breaking in and people's houses and all that stuff. So we had built a relationship with the girlfriend that he was with, and but this is an example of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But also I just want to go back to all our little neighbors in that area. They would call us. They would tell us to meet them around the block. I mean, all the time, like, hey, this is what's going on. Hey, meet me down the block.
Yes.
Meet me in the alley. So we always had these personal, hidden conversations, and it was just really cool. So this one lady called me, and she was like, hey, actually, we knocked on her door earlier, and we said, hey, where's he at? She's like, hey, this guy been beating me a little bit. I forgot how it went down. But she said, he'll be back about 2 a.m. So she said, and then that's when I piped in. I was like, are you going to leave the door open for us? She said, yeah. She said, and I did this. I mean, we did this many a times, but this is one story that Q wanted me to tell. So I was like, are you going to leave the porch light on if he's here when he get home? She's like, yeah, I'll do that. Okay. So once again, this guy had like about 6 or 7 felony warrants. He had been hitting us hard over there in that area. So here it is, 3 o'clock in the morning. And guess what? Porch light on. Q with me and a couple more guys. They were young. They're not young, but they were newer. I go up to the door. The doorknob turned, and she gave me the exact path to get to her bedroom. And so here it is. We go upstairs in the dark. Now, I mean, this is back in the days now.
But you had consent.
She gave us consent because she knew that he was just a bad apple.
Sure.
So we go upstairs in the bedroom. Did we all circle the bed or whatever? It
was like the Pink Panther. Like we go all creeping up the steps.
3 o'clock in the morning. 3 o'clock in the morning. And this was a very, very bad guy. And next thing I know, wait, do we flip the light on? Or do we just flash the flashlight? Do you remember?
I think we flipped the light on. Surprise! You under arrest? OPD in the house.
In his PJs and all that stuff. But to get him off the street it was huge though, because he was such a bad guy and he was hitting us so hard. He wouldn't take the streets. He wouldn't take the alleys. He would take the backyards, jumping fences to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
So that was difficult for us to, find him. I mean, he was really, really good at what he did. But that was just one little example of our relationship with the people. I mean, I helped
Trust.
her out, but I helped her out
Trust.
tremendously. She helped us out tremendously. But once
Trust.
again, knocking on that door, hey, listen, your man got a warrant. Hey, and he's been doing A, B, C, and D. And this is what we always brought to people. I mean, we didn't play games and nothing like that. You know, we treated people just like we would want to be treated. So.
But your success came from trust, right?
Oh yeah.
So later, moving forward in your career, right? Because I know your career, right? You were a very successful narcotics officer.
Mm-hmm.
The reason you were successful is because people talked to you because they trusted you.
Yep.
Quincy, you were incredibly successful as a homicide detective. Why did people talk to you? Because they trusted you, right? They looked at you, and all those layers of trust and conversation and effort, where sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. When you had that person in the box or you had that person on a proffer, they were talking to you because they could see it in your face. They could see it in the way you guys operated. I'm not the one that you're going to hustle, right? I'm not the one that you're going to just throw some bullshit to and I'm going to buy it. I need more from you. You know I need more from you. And that magic happened and that success followed, right? So to all the young officers that are out there that have committed themselves to this career, you cannot get the success without the things that I just described. It's impossible. You don't have success without building trust. And I don't know what gets in the way. Well, I do know what gets in the way. Ego, distractions, this idea that I'm bigger than the badge. You're a cop and you can't build trust with your coworkers. You can't build trust with your command. You can't build trust with the people you serve. I don't know what the hell you're doing.
Yeah.
I don't, because it doesn't make any sense. You can't get out there and operate in a way that people believe you and have the results that you're looking for.
Because I think the communication has just been lacking in reference to the new policing. I think that the contact is just making contact with people, and also just there's no understanding how to talk to people. And then also, like you said, it's like I never thought I was above anyone in reference to being out there on the street. Remember, I'm from the South Side of Chicago, so I mean, I respected everyone, and even when I was training folks, I told them it was simple. Treat mugs like you want them to treat your daughter, your father, your sister. I mean, just treat everybody like that. Now, if they go over here, let's go. I mean, now if they go over here, I mean, let's go. But treat people like you want to be treated.
Right.
You know, or you want your son to be treated,
Right.
or and that's the way that I really appreciated the way we did things. We never started nothing. Wait, hold on. 98% of the time, we never started nothing. I mean, but if you want to go there, hey, let's go.
Yeah,
I
let's
mean,
go.
I packed the lunch and we're gonna go there. Let's
Ready to
go.
there.
Like, I remember on night shift, man, you cracked some dude's skull, and our shift lieutenant was like, Quincy, I think you got the record for how many stitches a man can get in his face after you punch that man right in his lookers. Yeah, Steve Mitchell. Shout out to Steve Mitchell. Best lieutenant. Oh, my goodness gracious. Back in the day.
You got 27 stitches. I remember that. 27
What?
27 stitches. But that wasn't just being a thug. That wasn't just going out and trying to crack somebody's head open, right? That came because of his actions, not yours, right? But the point is this. And why we are so passionate about you guys being the best and paved the way for us as street cops coming in behind you and giving us some tools of things that we would have never thought of, right? Because quite frankly, that's why it's so profound to follow folks like you, right? Now, look, we've talked a little bit today about black and white, whatever. I look past that. I don't care if you're from fucking Mars and you got pink and purple polka dots. It doesn't matter to me. If you're doing the job better than me, I want to learn from you.
I agree.
If you've got better tools than me, I better figure it out because you're spanking me in the term of results. And I want the results that you have. I want the respect that you have. When you go into a neighborhood 15 years later and they still know you and they still respect you, that didn't come from pushing a button on a microwave and abracadabra, here you are. You put a shitload of work into doing that.
So I just want to touch on that. With Q and I, when we go in the neighborhood, to this day, or before we retired, people would be inviting us in the house. I mean, we'd be on the street. People would be like, hey, what's up? I mean, you would think that we lived in that neighborhood. I'm sorry, Quincy, go ahead.
But just to add, with your 20, it's amazing that you heard about that story with the 27 stitches. Let me give you just a brief thing. I remember that situation. That I was checking that guy in the alley. All right?
Yeah.
And he refused to get in the car after having a warrant. And then he swung at me 2 or 3 times in the alley. I'm by myself. And again, I'm from the streets of Saginaw. And this wasn't a good thing to do for y'all young officers, but I swung right back with him. As he was swinging with me. Anything could have happened, but I went right back to the streets, swinging right back at him. And I got one punch where he got on the ground. He got on the ground, and then he took off running. And there was another officer. His name was Daryl Green. He was later on our chief.
Green.
He was my backup officer at that time. But I chased that guy for 2.5 blocks before Daryl Green got there. And then at some point, and this is for the young officers, y'all shouldn't do this. At some point, the guy turned around and said, oh, you want some more? I was like, ooh, let's go, man. You know what I'm saying? And we went straight up knuckles. Boom, boom. Fighting, back and forth. And then I got him on the ground again, and I might have punched him a couple times where he probably got 27 stitches in his head, all right? But the point is, this is the beauty. The point is like, afterwards, somebody pulled me off him, say, all right, this is enough. And then all the community, remember, I'm in my neighborhood, all the community saw the interaction. So when the investigation started, they did the investigation, and they went door by door, what happened on this particular day? And they said, listen, we saw that guy swing on our officers.
There you go.
Jack.
There you go.
You know
There
what I'm
it
saying?
is.
There you
and
go.
that wasn't right.
Yep.
And he took care of business.
Right.
Never got a complaint because that was the thing back in the day where they took care of us, man. You know what I'm saying? They knew that we was out there doing our job. He should have never swung at me in the first place. He had several warrants, you know what I'm saying? But that was I had 2 major fights in my career, and that was one of them. And I had another crazy one, you know what I'm saying, we can get into later on down the road. But it was about the community taking care of me. You never hear that now in society. Now they'll say, oh, the officer was just wrong what he did. Mm-hmm. They knew that I was out there protecting the community and helping them out. And they knew that they saw him swinging at me. And it was never a situation.
But I think, too, look, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I am, right? I think that you talk about deposits versus withdrawals. Right? If we're talking about a bank account, I talk to Kaz about this all the time. I told my man here, I was like, look, you have such a high bank account with me. There's no withdrawal possible that you're ever going to be in the negative with me. You know what I mean? And you two are the same way, right? Like Frank or Quincy or Frank or whatever, like it doesn't matter. There's nothing that's going to come between you guys as far as you just
We
know who you are.
We've had too many battles 100%. Together.
You have so many deposits. There's nothing that could possibly be taken from it, right? And in a way, I would compare that to your neighborhoods, right? You guys put so many deposits in your neighborhoods that it made it all come back to you when it came to a situation like this where somebody's going to allege excessive force or whatever. Now, if they saw something that was egregious, I think that they would speak up, but it was automatically, there were so many deposits that you had made up to that point. They're looking at it on a fair slate, right?
Well, not only
Right.
that. I mean, let me challenge anybody that might be listening to this, and they're kind of feeling some kind of way. Right now, walk out of your house, walk to your local party store, and engage somebody in a physical confrontation. Tell me how that's going to go.
Fair.
We literally get called to service, right? We're asked to be professional. We're asked to conduct ourselves correctly. But when someone says, no, I'm not going to jail, and you can arrest them, our job is to put these little fancy little handcuffs around your wrist. So take these handcuffs, walk out of your door right now to your local party store and accomplish that task, and tell me how clean it's going to look. Tell me how polite it's going to look.
Tell me you don't swear at that motherfucker.
You're going to be fighting for your life.
Damn right.
And there was a very, 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 very influential person in my life. His name is Triple D. Right?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Triple D
Oh, yeah.
told me there's a gun on every call, young man. It's yours. Some calls we can handle, and some calls we can't. If you get put on your back, there may be a moment where they're going to take your gun. We don't have the luxury of knowing the intent of someone that doesn't want to go to jail. So when you squared up with that person, good for you. You want some? Come get it. Because now you're saying to that person, I'm in the fight. You're going to go home. You're going to survive that thing. Wasn't our fault that you could throw your hands. You touched him up a little bit, right? And the result was you went home, he went to jail, right? That's a necessary evil in the business that we do, and I'll never apologize for it. I'll never apologize for being a street cop that has to engage in physicality, because the streets are nasty and the streets are mean and people die in the streets every day. Right. And if you can't wrap your head around that and it's too hard for you to comprehend that, switch the channel. Listen to somebody else. Right?
Constantly, real quick, and I just want to go back to what he just said. It's about you were in the alley by yourself. That was normal for us.
Yeah.
So we were not scared. I mean, we didn't wait for 3 or 4 people to get there and then get there and everything else.
We took care of business.
We took care of business. I mean, we saw something. Once again, we called it out that we were checking this person right here. It could be at 3 o'clock in the morning. It could be at whatever, but we called it out. Also, what we did though is I remember that time when we chased that guy who was loitering. He ran all the way across Cedar Street, jumped the fence.
Yeah.
And what did we do when we got him?
We had a policy. Whenever anybody ran from us, it was a policy. We're gonna set an example in our particular neighborhood so everybody else would see. So this guy, it was a spring. This guy had a nice jogging suit, white jogging suit, like just pristine,
but it wasn't pristine in a minute.
Was it Adidas? I think it was Adidas. Yeah, Adidas and Nike, yeah. It was a pretty jogging suit, just pretty jogging suit. So he made the mistake of running, and we checked him, and he had a warrant. He took off and ran. So he was like, listen.
On Herbert Street.
In a
down
jogging
Isbell.
suit.
Down Isbell.
Running from the police in a jogging suit.
And he
I'm there.
Jogging suit.
Yep.
So everybody, this spring day, everybody's outside.
out.
The first warm day, he's actually running from us. He ran eastbound on Isabel. He crossed Cedar. He crossed a different jurisdiction because Cedar was our jurisdiction back in the day. But we still go over there. And then he actually jumped. He went into somebody's backyard. I'll never forget this, man. He jumped on top of a fence, and unfortunately Frank was right behind him. Frank's MSU.
People don't understand that we can run. I mean, I love to run. I love to run.
So he jumped up, and then unfortunately when he jumped down, it was in a bunch of mud. So he started like a pig, like, I gotta get my footing, I gotta get back up. Frank was like, it looked like a wrestling move, like, you know what I'm saying, like the WWNBA or whatever it was. He jumped up.
Because the people's elbow.
He landed
over the fence.
He landed right on top of the guy, and they're going back and forth like some pigs, man. We end up cuffing him. And then, obviously we calling it out the foot pursuit the entire time. So there was 2 or 3 other officers on Isabel.
Cars,
on the
cars,
other side.
yeah, cars,
And
yeah.
they all show up, and we got them cuffed, and we're all muddy, you know. And then the 2 officers was like, "Hey,
You wanna
hey,
ride?
good job. Y'all want us to transport them back to y'all car?" I was like,
Hell no.
No, this is what we do in our hood.
Walking down the
We gonna
street.
walk this motherfucker.
Yeah,
All the way down
buddy.
Isabel.
Yeah, buddy.
All the way
We're gonna
down
have a
Isabel.
fucking parade.
Yeah.
Stop
We're
and
gonna
see the
have
street
a
traffic.
parade.
Everybody, we
right.
stopped Cedar
That's
Street.
right.
Think about Cedars.
That's right.
That's a lot of traffic in Isabel. We stopped the traffic. We was like, hey, we just got this guy right here. Man, he's all muddy. His jogging suit all dirty. You know, and then all the little kids like, oh, the cops got y'all. Oh. And that's the point, is that we set
is
a
the point.
precedence back then. Hey, you weren't from the cops. This is what happened to you.
That's all.
That's what happened to you.
Well,
and we
it's-
did that all the time.
We've had probably 4 or 5 episodes, dude, and we can't get away from this idea of the term accountability, right? You're going to be held accountable. You're going to be held accountable, right? You will. If you're a criminal, you should be held accountable. If you don't, you will eventually, right? You guys held people accountable. That wasn't your guys' idea for him to put on a fresh little suit and end up in a mud pile.
No, trying to
That was
embarrass
it.
us. No.
Yeah.
That was it.
That set the respect, because they all knew after that guy was arrested. Think about it. The people that he told and the people that saw him, all the little kids saw him, like Quincy and Frank, they don't play. They're gonna embarrass you. That's where it came from, man. It came from stuff like that. It was nothing crazy, but it was the fact that, hey, you run from the police, you're gonna get embarrassed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You don't
and
run from the police.
supported
Don't
us.
run from the
Yes.
police.
You don't run from the police.
Yeah. We always walked everybody that we arrested that ran from us, we walked them all the way back. If it was a half mile, if it was a mile, if it was 2 miles, we walked them all back. That whole line of shame. You know what I'm saying?
And we're
The
looking
walk
for
of
whatever he
shame,
dropped.
baby.
And whatever he dropped, we're looking for it too. Whatever he dropped too. So
Yeah, we didn't need a canine.
exactly. Because we walking him right back. And I got to throw a shout out to Green for a second though. Green came in when we were a CPO, and the way Green helped us out was Green kind of set us down and said, okay, Green was a little bit older, so he kind of taught us how to write that descriptive report writing. Like, as I was doing this happened, and as I looked out the corner of my eye, I mean, he taught us how to write a novel.
Yeah.
And that really helped us out in reference to writing reports. I mean, so I just want to throw that out there.
Daryl Green.
Yeah.
D. Green. I enjoyed my time so much in Tri-County Metro, but we did it 10 times more when I got to SOD.
Yeah, which is the
SOS.
Special Operations Division of the police
So
department.
so I took a little bit of what I had, and then we had it was like the Bulls, and we drafted some hell of a players.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to give it to G. Parrott. I mean, he was like the little Jordan. He was the white chocolate. But I'm just saying, well, we had a great team over there.
So you went from road patrol officer to community policing officer to
Background investigator,
to Tri-County,
field training officer,
back to CPO, and then into K9, and then negotiator, and then back into Lansing Police Department's narcotics team.
Yep.
And then you got out of there and then went to Detective Bureau.
Transitioning right into that.
That's
so it's funny you mentioned that. So once again, we're talking about back in the days. I tell the young officers, you are the author of your career.
You said the author of your career.
You are the author of your career, your life. But I'm basing this on LPD now. You can do whatever the hell you want to do at LPD. All I'm asking you to do is don't be afraid to do something. Did I want to do K9?
Thank God. Frank.
Did I want to do K9? I was afraid. I used to call him all the time, like, dude, Shadow is a mother sucker.
Shadow's your dog. Shadow was your dog.
Shadow
right?
was my partner for 5 years, I miss him dearly. But I would have never reached out, and I mean, I would have never pushed myself to do that if I didn't have him and Carmen. Carmen was also a big person. I mean, that really pushed me out. But I was the first black K9 officer. It's deep.
Mm-hmm.
Why was your dog named Shadow?
Because I was the first black Shadow. I'm just kidding. I'm just playing.
I'm just messing
My kids named him. all I'm saying is that I did something that no one else had done, and I had a fabulous career with Shiloh.
Yeah.
I'm saying, but you have to go into the unknowns. I'm sorry. So go ahead, Q. I had a great time at LPD because I did some things that were a little uncomfortable, but you also became really good at them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but
So right from CPO, where did you go, Q?
First of all, what was your favorite position?
CPO is listen, at CPO, we work, wait, hold on now. I love CPO and I love my last stint of SOD. I thought I did something in Metro, but we did that 10 times more in SOD. It blew my mind on what we did in SOD. So, but CPO, hey, that was thank you. So,
I admit, I think CPO gave me the foundation of everything. You know, to me, it was the most important position that I had at LPD. And what was crazy is that I was forced into that. I didn't want it, you know? So I'm glad that it happened to me. I'm glad that I had the experience. And after the CPO, it was a 2.5-year assignment. You know, you have to go back to the role for a couple years. And then I had the opportunity to go to Metro. And I ended up taking the Metro spot. And I was there for, I believe, 2.5 years as a UC. And again, it was an easy transition for me. And I'm sure Frank can tell you will agree, like, because we were able to talk to people, you know. So my hardest thing was understanding that I'm not a cop anymore, and that you know there's not a like bubbles on top of my patrol car. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah, you're not a uniform cop.
yeah. In my first deal, I had a heroin deal at King and Michigan. And it was weird because the guy was a dude that I arrested 3 times prior for like drunk driving. And I didn't have enough, you know, I didn't know that I should change my name. So I just said Q. And I did a cold call, you know, just like basically called him and said I wanted some heroin. He was like, all right, meet me at King in Michigan. So I meet him at King in Michigan. It's the guy that I arrested 3 times.
Wow.
You know, and I still have my glasses on. And I said that my name is Q. So the guy looked at me and was like, hey man, you look just like a cop that arrested me, man, a couple weeks ago. I was like, dude. And back in the day, you know, I don't know about now, but back in the day, you could have props.
Yeah.
And a prop was a beer. You can get a beer. You don't drink it, but you basically have it in a car.
Yeah.
And you might sip on it or whatever. So I was like, hey man, dude, if I was a cop, I wouldn't be drinking a beer. And I took a sip of it. You know what I'm saying? He said, oh, you right. And he did the transaction. That was my first heroin deal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
And Metro, what I loved about Metro is that it was different departments. It was Ingham County. It was the state police. You know, it was other. And I had a decent reputation at LPD. But what I realized is that at Metro, you got to humble yourself. Because they don't care where you came from. They don't care what you did. It's all about what you can do.
Indeed.
And at the time, Chris Ojibwe was out there. There was a Benahoff. You know, if you listen to this, he was out there. He was Ingham County, and they all like pretty much took me underneath their wings and said, "Hey, this is how you do drug operations." And I thought that was the best thing ever, because I was able to go to different states. You know, I was doing investigations all over the country, and I thought that was the greatest thing ever. And then I had a conversation with a guy named James Gill. He was a detective with the Lansing Police Department, and he told me, he said, "Q, if you think you like the dope aspect of, you know, Metro, wait until you get to DB." So I had an opportunity to do it was a 2C spot, a temporary detective spot with the Lansing Police Department. And I was able to get that spot. And what I realized is after I got in, I realized that it wasn't the fact that I loved the dope experience. It was the investigative edge that I loved. That was my drive. So when I went in there, everyone knew that I had experience. And shouts out to Bruce Holiday and uh, um, Kathy Farrell. They were seasoned homicide detectives, and they allowed me to be secondary in their homicide investigations where I was only supposed to be doing property crimes. That's where I was able to really understand what LPD was about in the investigative stuff. And I give it all to Bruce Holiday. He taught me a lot, you know. And from there, I was a 2C, and I realized that that was the best experience I've ever had. And then I end up, I was an FTO. We were all both recruiters, for the Lansing Police Department because we felt like we needed to do that. We needed to be there in that space. And I had an opportunity to get promoted. So I got promoted full time as a detective, and I served in the detective bureau off and on for 13 years. And then I had the opportunity to be a FBI task force officer with VCI, and I had the opportunity to work with Nancy Hamilton. I had the opportunity to work with you guys. And ultimately, that was the highlight of my career because I only dealt with serial armed robberies and bank robberies. And it was an opportunity for me to truly, truly exercise all the experience that I accumulated throughout all those years, starting as a community police officer.
Starting from the street.
Start from the street, man. And I had the best experience ever. And that's why finished my career.
That's what's so incredible. Like, we've been talking for a while, man, but the foundation never leaves you in this career. It never leaves you. The foundation's always going to be there. And if you can express that, right? And when you found your niche, and you found it, Q, and Frank, you found it too. And you never allowed the other things to dissuade you. You know what I mean? You could have started at this place. You could have resented the idea that you were being treated differently because of the way you looked or your appearance, but you chose not to. And you built amazing relationships with everybody, people of all kinds. And I just really honor you guys for that. I believe that what you guys did was you proved, right, that regardless of what people might have as an opinion, that's just bullshit, right? You push past it, and everyone that you were able to have contact with in the future of your career, and now the past, benefited from that, and that's admirable. I don't know that there's a lot of people that would look at getting into a profession because they want to be a part of, but it's change. It's real novel to say nowadays, right? But you guys actually did it.
Cause I know that we're wrapping things up, but hold on one sec. I just want to go here real quick. It was an honor to be there. It was an honor to do something that was so different than what we were, than what any of our family members. I mean, anyone that we knew. I mean, it was just cool to do something different and also enjoy it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and then you telling me that I can. You mean to tell me I could go out and work on a project if we wanted to? I mean, so and the neat thing is that when we were working together, we took care of business. Then if we were separate, I might slack off a little bit, or he might hit it hard, or he might slack off a little bit and I hit it hard. But we had a basic agenda of what needed to be done for our area when we first started.
Yep.
And that was the foundation, like Quincy said. So I'm just very thankful. I'm just very blessed that we came in there together at that time and we had a common denominator. Like, hey, you like the neighborhood too? Like, yeah, I like that neighborhood. Or you want to do something different? Yeah, I want to do something different. You want to link up? Yeah, let's link up. Let's take care of this business over here. And he wasn't afraid. Listen to that word now. Afraid.
Yeah.
I wasn't afraid. Once again, we'd be in the alley many a nights checking people. because they'll cut off the alley real quick, and then you'll be calling out, yeah, I'm such and such, I'm calling it out. And by the time the car get there, you've already ran them and stuff. I mean, but we were not afraid because that's what we knew we had to do, because we knew that if you let him cut down here, he was going to be gone.
Yeah.
That word afraid is huge, though. I mean, that word afraid of making that contact is huge. I mean, so.
And I want to add this, and and I know you would share the same thing. Like, we were young. We were 23 when we first started.
22, me.
20, or I was 23. So in 1995. So think about it. Even with all of our backgrounds and what we wanted to do, we were still in an FTO program. And when we passed the FTO program, they basically set us out in a car. We were still like, oh my God, we were still afraid. Like, oh my God, what are we supposed to do? Like, who's gonna take the lead? Like, I don't want to take the lead. Like, we were there. But there was one officer. And I'm looking at the camera right now. There was one officer that we all looked up to. Everybody on our shift, including Frank and I, and I'm sure you agree with this, the guy's name was Darren Dusso.
Nice.
Damn right.
He was the guy that was the first dude at a call, at crazy calls, shootings, homicides.
Oh yeah, come on now.
Everything you can think of. And what I loved about Darren Dusso is that he never looked at us as being young, inexperienced. He knew at some point that these guys were going to be the leaders or be leaders in this particular unit, you know what I'm saying, or LPD, and he always gave us that respect. Yeah. And what I learned from him is that we did the same thing. So throughout our career, there's nobody at LPD that can say that we never offered our experience, offered our advice, whether it was good or whatever. We always shared that with others because we felt like we had those guys to share that with us, whether it was Darren Dusso, whether it was Kathy Farrell, whether it was Bruce Holliday, whether it was Guy Pace, and that
Norm
Namey. That's what made us different from everybody else, is that we always shared that. And I don't know if LPD's like that now, but it should continue where the guys that have the information, they should be able to share that information.
And not look down on the other ones that don't have the information.
Yes.
And that you did shit with purpose, and nobody can take that away from you. And you guys did that, and you taught us how to do that. And I'm glad that I was able to retire young. You know what I mean? Young, looking back, knowing that I did this shit the right way. And I thank you guys, because you guys were catalysts in that, and you affected so many, like you say, Darren and Bruce Holliday and Kathy Farrell, and good for them, because that's a gift. That's a gift in law enforcement. If you can retire young, please, please, please have that be your goal. Retire young, because if you're some call shielder, some complainer, somebody who thinks you're above the job, good luck to you, because you're not going to retire the way we did.
Well, amen.
Yeah.
You won't retire with a legacy.
Yep.
You won't retire coming in and saying to guys like Frank Mobley and Quincy Scroggins, thank God you guys were here, because we watched how you did it, and we carried that forward into the street, and we took a little something out of the wisdom that you guys had. We took it for ourselves, and we went off to the races, and in a lot of the ways we're different, but in a lot of ways we're the same.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and our bloodline comes back to you guys.
Yep.
You know, it does. It 100%. And whatever legacy, you know, we have, and it, you know, I'm proud of mine. I know you're proud of yours too, right? But it matters to say that you can't just expect a legacy. If you want your name to be in a park in South Lansing because you patrolled that neighborhood so hard, like, it is going to have to come through a shitload of hard work.
Yep. For sure.
And a shitload of pushback there's a lot of, I know from my own experience, there's a lot of flack in the way right? There's a lot of
You're
there's a lot
moving
of
too
landmines.
fast. You're moving too fast.
There's a
You do
lot of
this.
landmines. There's a lot of complaint, and a lot of it's internally. There are a lot of ankle biters. You're because why? You're showing other cops your taillights. You're out too far. You're doing it too good. You're getting too much results. Now we need to bite your ass and bring you down here a little bit. Why don't you come down here and be miserable with the rest of us? Right? Man, you guys never bought into that. You guys did it your way, on your terms, in your neighborhood, your rules, and because of what you were doing was bigger than anything else, and you knew where you were going.
Us, it worked for us. Once again, you at LPD, you know what? You are the author of your career. Simple. You know what? Number two, I used to get into these arguments with the older guys all the time. If you're that fucking unhappy at LPD, change.
Yeah.
Go to another
100%.
job.
100%.
I mean, go to another job. It's
Seriously.
like why are you here creating all this negativity when you don't have to be here? It's like LPD not holding you here. You're not in prison. You're not in prison. So I appreciate what LPD has done for me and my family.
Damn right.
So last thing, here's the disclaimer again. Hey, I had a wonderful career at LPD. I thank the Lord for being a part of LPD. And anyone that takes offense to what I said tonight or what he said tonight, fuck you. But
Attaboy.
because it's not meant for that. It's not meant for that. It's not.
It's not meant for
It's
that.
not.
No.
But they asked us to be truthful, and I told them the truth.
Yeah.
But even after that, no one has never heard me say anything negative or him say anything negative.
Damn right.
We did our job. We became the best at what we did. And if you're mad about that, hey, that's on you. So
So
There
let
it
me
is.
so let me ask you this, right? Let me ask you this. Most important question of the night,
oh my goodness.
right? There is new cops, new or newer, that are out there and they're hungry and they're wanting to get after it and they're wanting to get the respect out there in the street. They're too new to understand what a legacy means and what it takes to get one. But that's what they want. They don't know anything yet, but that's what they want, right? Let me ask you guys this. What would you say to the brand new or newer officer starting today or recently? What would you tell them as they move forward from your experience as to what it takes to be successful in the street?
And times have changed now. Don't get me wrong.
No, 100%. Times, a lot of things have changed.
Okay.
But it
Even in
you're-
5 years,
you're right.
it's changed.
You're right.
4 years.
You're damn right. Since 2020, things have been a lot has been upside down and inside out. There's no question about that. But even through that, right? A lot of things are still applicable to the old school mentality. Because look, how you talk to someone, how
It
you get
means so
respect,
much. It
how
means
you
so
get
much. It means
how
so
you
much.
make the relationships
It
in the
means so
street
much. It
is
means
still
so much.
applicable.
It means so much. Quincy,
So,
go ahead.
so what would your advice be to the new person starting today or recently and moving forward and they want to be somebody? What would you say to them?
Honestly, the advice that they gave me 20-something years ago, keep your mouth shut. Listen and learn.
Do the job.
Do the job. And then, like once you learn, it takes about 5 to 6 years to truly learn your job if you're out there doing what you have to do. And this, like he said, treat people the way that you want to be treated. I think that's really important, And then you dictate your career based on what you believe in, And personally, Mark Alley used to go to, and this is another thing, this is a side note. Mark Alley used to come to our lineups when we were young, when we first started. He was like, hey, if you want to be a millionaire, invest in deferred comp. I'm telling you, all the young guys, out of anything, 17% of your annual salary you should put into deferred comp, and you will be a millionaire when you're our age. That's important because it gives you options later on in life.
Yep.
And you don't know that when you first start out because you figure, hey, I got a new job.
Yeah.
But
Sexy.
deferred comp and dollar cost averaging is a great thing.
It's huge. That's huge.
It's huge. It's huge.
It's huge.
That's my advice.
I think that communication is the key. Learn how to talk to people. But how can you know how to talk to people when they're trainers? I'm not saying that this is happening to LPD. I'm talking about just in general when the trainers don't know how to talk to people. So I think that communication is the key when it comes to police to this new police world, and treat people like you want to be treated. So it's simple.
And get promoted. Somebody else told me this early on in my career. They said,
that was deep.
If you really want to be successful at LPD,
Get promoted.
Get in. They told me get in as many special assignments as possible, and I did that. Frank did that. And what's cool about it is it gives you different areas to learn to be a better officer. Whether you're in Metro, whether you're in SOD, whether you're a CPO, because both Frank and I agree the most important special assignment we had was something that we were drafted in as a CPO because it taught us skills on how to deal with politics. We circumvented our command officers when they told us that we couldn't have them.
We went right above
We'll go
them.
to city council, we'll go to the mayor, and they gave us the finances, everything that we needed. So, and somebody, I think it was, I forgot his name, Howard, it was one of your guys, your main guys.
Yeah, Howard.
Howard, he was a city council guy, and he told both of us, he said, listen, Howard Jones, dead and gone. He's been gone for a long time. But he told us, he was like, listen, whatever you guys need, go through city council and they'll give you the finances, they'll give you whatever you need. And it was totally true. Like, so just realize, young bucks, if CPOs, if you want something, you he told us, focus on 4 leaders within your community.
Oh, that's deep. Yes.
Four leaders within your community,
Yes.
whether they're neighborhood watch coordinators, whether they're, like really important people in your neighborhood. We identified the 4 people in our neighborhood, and one of them was Howard Jones, and I had some folks.
Joyce,
in my
what's her name? Joyce, what was her name? On Barnes.
I'm drawing a blank, but I know what you're talking about. So we focused on those 4 individuals within our communities. They gave us everything that we needed. So they gave us the insight. They told us what to do. It didn't come from the Lansing Police Department.
Well, you know, it's funny when you say circumvented. It's not. It doesn't. It shouldn't. People shouldn't interpret that as bucking the system. Nobody knew the people better than you did.
Yeah,
true.
And sometimes administration will act beyond what they know.
Yeah,
trust,
LPD,
right?
Well, LPD was always this, and I don't know if it's still like this, but LPD was always like this. And again, Frank and I had the privilege of working with the state police. Same thing with the state police. Whatever is normal for them is normal for everybody. They don't want to go outside of that realm. So my thing is, we thought outside of the box. How can we get kids down to Cedar Point? Or how can we get kids to Chicago? If LPD told us, they would have said, well, we don't have the finances. So we went outside of the box to find out what we had to do. And Howard Jones told us, hey, this is how you do it, and it worked.
But you when you say that, you have to throw in the other part too, though. We led the city in arrest and tickets. I mean, violation. I mean, we led in city ordinance. I mean, we did that all the time when we were there. So it's like, okay, we did these things over here for the community, but we still held these titles over here for taking care of our business in our neighborhood. So I mean, so you couldn't say nothing.
Yeah,
that's like when people would get mad at us for bossing it up.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
two-man car. But it's like, how can you get mad at us when we taking in 6 or 7 people that night?
Because in the early days, let me ask you this. In the early days, what was our sole purpose on the street?
Take people to jail.
Take motherfuckers to jail. Was it not?
Take people to jail.
Take people to jail. That's what we did. And fill it.
And not on traffic stuff. We talking about take people to jail for dope, guns, paraphernalia, all that warrants.
That's what you were hired to do in that time, right? And am I wrong? No, I'm not.
No.
We did that.
We did that.
I love doing that.
I did too. My goodness gracious, I did too. Because ultimately, I think, and it's not an evil thing. It's not a punishment thing. It's not a oh, look at me now thing. It's the neighborhood needs to see you being willing to take action because they are counting on you. And if they see you taking action over here and taking people to jail and working hard and being the line that's going to protect you, they know they can trust you, which comes back to what you guys were saying earlier, which is when we need you most, neighborhood, this is what's up.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
And just to add, we took people to jail. I think if you look at our stats, we probably took more people to jail than anybody else in the city. But on top of that, we just thought, hey, let's put our spin on it. And let's make sure that, okay, we taking these guys to jail, we taking care of the community, but we're also doing something positive in the community. We did Christmas parties. We did dances, you know what I'm saying? Because we realized that because you take somebody to jail doesn't mean that you're a great cop. You got to do something more than that.
It's not just about numbers.
Giving out Thanksgiving turkeys and all that stuff.
There it is right there.
Yeah.
And Mark McAleer talked about this, and Norm Amy talked about this, right? The heart and the fist. Mark McAleer talked about this. The heart and the fist. It's not just about coming out here and being a fist and kicking ass and taking names and filling the jail. That certainly is part of an element here. As far as it's what we do, like we take action, people break the law, we're law enforcement, that falls in the category of what we're paid to do, but yet we can do it respectfully, we can do it responsibly, and then on the back end, it's not so much about the fist as it is having the heart.
That's what separated us from everybody else.
100%.
And that's why we got the respect to this day, is because we invested in the community outside of just arresting people. Like, again, my kid, man, my daughter was in a NICU for 3.5 months. It wasn't because I arrested everybody in the neighborhood. It's because I took Renee on field trips. I let her know that there was more in life than just Lansing, Michigan. And she strived to do something more in life. Yeah. And that's how our community was, man.
I just want to throw shout outs to y'all too. I thank you guys for, like, we consider ourselves on the South End. We did our job on the South End. We held it down. I mean, in our little area. But you guys did the same thing over in the North End. I mean, I have none but respect and appreciation for what y'all did. Outside of that one day when you jumped out in that car when I was doing SOS and you stopped the car for the felony stop, and I had to jump out the car on that day. You remember what I'm talking about? When you cut the car off and they were coming down Green River and MSP was coming, and I had to jump out the car like, oh shucks. You remember that day? I mean,
Are you saying that I got in front of a vehicle pursuit?
No.
That doesn't sound like me at all.
I didn't say that. So let me go back to this.
Are you saying that I boxed a car in outside
of
policy?
No, I didn't say that either.
I will have you know.
When you stopped that car and we were waiting on MSP and I had to get out the damn car with my flip-flops on to help you out.
Hey, I heard that story. He was mad because he had his flip-flops.
I'm flip-flopping. I'm sitting up in the car like this. MSP's 2 blocks away, 3 blocks away. No, not this guy right here. He jumps. I'm not. What the? I'm like throwing my coat on. Like, what the hell is Foreman's doing? Like, what the hell? But I understand. But I understand. Your heart was in it, though.
Okay, wait. Hold on a minute. Did we get the guy?
Yeah.
Mic drop.
He told me this story like 20 times.
Mic drop. Hey, did we get the guy?
I can't say nothing else.
Hey, worked out.
Hey, before we end, I just want to have shots out to Nancy Hamilton.
Oh, okay. Who's Nancy Hamilton?
She was supportive in reference to every investigation I had in VCI. She is the bomb. I just want to shoot out.
Nancy Hamilton not only was important or vital in that though, but Nancy Hamilton was the main reason we caught Rodman's killer firefighter that day. But go back, she was very instrumental in all that happened in reference to parole, probation, and all that. But not only that though, but she was very instrumental in catching Rodman's killer that day. I mean, she called it out. She did it perfectly. Got us behind the guy, and sure enough, we were able to apprehend him because of Nancy.
Wow. If she was here today, we just want to give her acknowledgement for what she's done.
If you don't know what the VCI team is out there, it's a hybrid between being on the street and being undercover. It's not completely undercover, but it's not completely on the street, but it is 100% laser focused on violent crime, weapons related incidents. And, you know, I had been in patrol or on the street my whole career. And then when Kaz and I linked up in VCI, I was very, very late in my career. I had no surveillance experience. I had no, experience undercover, anything like that. It was all in the street. It was all face to face, just like you guys were describing this, this whole time we've been talking here. It's the street contact. I had developed that. Mm-hmm. But now I'm in a totally different role, and I thought that motherfuckers out there had X-ray vision. Okay, I'm on surveillance, and I'm 4 miles away because the bad guy's gonna see me and is gonna break my cover and this and that. And we were trailing this dude, and it went all over the place. We were behind this guy, and all the undercover officers are plain clothes and plain cars. We're all switching positions and taking different turns and following this dude and this and that. And I'm 4 miles out of position. And I lost this dude. Like, I might as well have been in Arizona. This dude was so far away from me. And I'm so thankful that Nancy Hamilton, because Nancy Hamilton knew who I was, right? And she knew that my heart was in the right place. I didn't want to lose this guy, but the fact is I did. And she was there to clean it up. And was where she needed to be when I wasn't, and the dude got, and everything worked out, and it was great. And after all that, she pulled me aside and said, "Look, everybody that's new goes through this.
Oh yeah,
everybody. You're no different than anybody else. Jim, Fred, Joe, John, they all have done. They all think that these people have X-ray vision out here, and they're gonna see you from 4 miles away. It's not true. Just understand that you just got to be smooth with it, and just kind of make it look normal, and you'll be fine." And I was so thankful for that, because I knew I fumbled the ball that day. I knew that I did. I didn't need her telling me, "You fucked this up," because I already knew that I did. But I was so thankful that she didn't just hammer me.
Annihilate you.
She could have annihilated me, and I already had annihilated myself. I knew I let the team down, even though she picked up the pieces and was able to be in a position where she needed to be when I wasn't. Man, I was, even though it worked out, I knew that she had to do her job and mine in that moment. And I was so thankful that I was treated. You guys hammered it today. Treat people the way you want to be treated.
Oh, yeah.
Nancy Hamilton treated me the way I want to be treated, as far as in that moment, I let the team down, which is my worst fear of ever. I don't want to be the weakest link in this equation. And that day I was, but yet I was treated as though look, it's a mistake. It worked out, and you're going to be better, and we're all going to be. At the other side of this is you are going to be sharper.
But you're learning
you are going to be
a new
greater.
skill set.
You are learning a new skill set, and on the other end of that is your greatness.
Oh yeah,
you just get there. And man, I was so thankful for that.
You know what, Nancy? Okay, I mean she's good people. I must say that I she's good people. But getting back to y'all real quick, thank you guys for what y'all did on North End, holding that together. I mean, I want to give y'all respect too. Seriously.
Hold the air.
So you guys did it, but y'all were like a little bit uncomfortable. Y'all weren't as smooth as us though.
Oh no.
But everybody has to. You guys had to do it a different way than because of what you guys were dealing with.
Well,
I
that's
thank
when
you
it
guys.
was like, we got one fighting. And we were real calm about it. We got one fighting.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, we had one fighting. You guys was like, we got one fighting.
That's the difference. They were already engaged, and it's like, you want to fight? Okay, I got one fighting.
Oh shit! My goodness gracious.
So, all right, go ahead,
I think
guys.
he's talking about you. They're not talking about me.
No, Cos
idea.
is the same way. No, Cos. With
no
you,
idea.
it's Cos. Cos is you. Y'all both the same damn way, man. It's like,
But listen. Ultimately, what we're talking about, right, is the fact that we put ourselves in those situations that a lot of folks. You talked about being afraid. You can't be afraid doing this job. You gotta just do the job and hope that you back up on your training and you trust your fellow officer and you do all the things you're supposed to do, and then you get through the call. You get through the call and you have a great career. All right, so like seriously, I appreciate you guys coming down here, sharing your story. Every time we have somebody in the studio, this is our goal: is to talk about careers that we loved, share a little bit of advice, hope that the stories mean something to someone, and to just be a part of the police conversation and the camaraderie. And I love you guys and wish you nothing but the best.
Hell yeah! Appreciate you guys paving the way for us,
Thank
man.
you guys.
Cheers, love you.
Hey, thank you
All
guys.
right.
Love you
All
guys
right.
too. Seriously.
All right.